KGRA Radio and Pop Culture Minefield presents Dangerous Military Nerds. Dangerous Military Nerds. They're just like regular nerds, only dangerous. And now, your hosts, Don Ecker and Gerry Kissell.
Oh, I love how he says that. Don Ecker.
I know. I got to get him on the show. I'm going to get him on here one day. But we have one more thing from Mac that he sent to me after a night of drinking. It's a great warning to everybody watching the show. Here you go.
Warning. The following program involves discussions between military veterans. As such, it is almost guaranteed that there will be coarse language and crude subject matter. So if the words piss, fuck, cock, cunt, and shit offend you, or if openly discussing that one time you were butt-fucking your ex-girlfriend and her miniature pincher jumped up on the bed and started licking your asshole until you had the best orgasm of your life makes you uncomfortable, this might not be the place for you. Otherwise, enjoy.
I love the way to enjoy. That's what happens when Mac gets drunk and sends me messages. Of course, some of our chat is already here. Got a handful. Of course, Emma Confuse is here, love of my life. Let's see. Who else is here? Andy Morrow is here. Andy Morrow from the UK. And Dragon Ruse is here. Greetings. Anybody else? Das Wolfen is here, John. Thanks for showing up, guys. Hope some more show up. And, of course, we have our audience at KGRA. Hope you guys will enjoy the show. We have a special guest today that is really, I've been friends with this guy for a long time. And I don't know what happened, but we got drunk and became friends.
You never can tell, boy. Watch who you drink with.
I got to tell you, I've been drunk with him multiple times. It's like, no, it wasn't that. It was much further than that, a lot more than that. And of course, I'm talking about my buddy Shane Moore. Shane is the author of the Apocalypse of Enoch series. He helped create one of the largest anti-zombie fan militant groups called Zod, and they're part of his, creations. He is also an entrepreneur. He has a great business in Illinois, Central Illinois, for doing printing, and I think he deals a lot with motor vehicles as well as for businesses and signs and stuff like that. The guy just does so many different things. He was a semi-pro football player. He is an award-winning and record-setting heavy lifter in weights for his age group. And then, of course, he also is a Navy veteran, as well as a decorated retired police detective from Central Illinois. So everybody, give a big hand, or anything, for Shane Moore.
Yay!
Hi, Shane.
Is this thing on?
Yeah.
Sounds like it, yeah.
You are now on KGRA.
Nice. Hey, I saw your military intro, and you promised me that butt licking thing was just going to be between us.
Look, man, what Max does when he's drinking, I can't stop him. There's no law in the world to stop that guy.
Nice. Happy to be here. Hello, chat, and everybody listening.
Yeah, and Masters Radio and Television Plus Gaming is here too. So the crowd's slowly coming in on the chat, but we also have a larger listening audience. And Shane, I kind of skirted around what you've done, but you give us the lowdown.
Oh my, there's a lot. I've done a lot of stuff. I'm a nerd. I like to think of myself as the Forrest Gump of the things that I do. Shit, where should we start? Let's see what he got. Writer, right, in my headline there. So I've done a lot of novels, around 30 novels in print. I've done short stories. I've got a couple franchise writers that write in my world settings. One of my very first book series ever, the Abyss Walker series, which is high fantasy, was turned into a tabletop role-playing game expansion for Troll Games. And if got any tabletop nerds out there, they should know Troll. And if they don't, Troll Games was where Gary Gygax, who invented Dungeons and Dragons, went after he sold off D&D to TSR. So he went over to Troll, and they combined up and created the Castles and Crusade systems of what Gary thought 3.0 should have been, as opposed to what 3.0 was.
Right.
Athlete, semi-pro football. I played 13 seasons with the Central Illinois Cougars, retired. My son got old enough. Dakota. I
love your son. He's such an awesome guy.
Dakota made the team as a rookie and wanted me to come out of retirement and play a season with him. And I was coming off of a car crash where a guy rear-ended me doing about 60, and it killed him. And I had nerve and brain damage and all kinds of messed up stuff. And I couldn't even move the left side of my body for a hot minute. But I was doing in the middle of I was just about done with rehab, and he wanted me to come out and play with him. So my goal was just to make the team, and went into camp and made the team. And Gary knows me. I'm very competitive. So that ended up to me fighting for a starting spot. He ended up winning the starting spot. And then we went 0-3 the first 3 games. We lost the first one 44-12. We lost the second one 49-0. And then we lost the third game 18-14, I want to say.
Yeah. 49-0, that had to hurt.
It did. We had a lot of really young players that they were good in college, but they hadn't quite adjusted to the difference in the game. And we were turning it around. We were getting them on pace. And so we played the first team that beat us 44-12. We played them week 4, and we beat them in overtime. And then we never lost again. I went on to win the championship. And my son got Rookie of the Year. So it was pretty good season. And then I retired for good.
Well, it's fantastic. Then you turn right around and you start doing heavy lifting.
Yeah, so I just kept training because even though I was retired from football, actually I started coaching for the team too. I became the linebackers coach and then later the signal caller for the defense. But I just kept lifting, and I was at I'm not really a religious guy per se, but I always refer to it as the universe, and the universe sends me hints. And I had a lawn guy over at my house working on some stuff, and I had a 7-foot maple sapling and a kind of a what do you call those culvert things that go down your basement, the egress chamber or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "You have $200, I'll cut it out of there." And I said, "Fuck, $200? Are you kidding me? Let's just pull it out." He goes, "Oh, you can't pull out a 7-foot sapling." I'm like, "The hell you can't." So I went over there and he laughed. He goes, "There's no way you'll pull that out." And I gave it.
You did.
Well, yeah, I gave it a tug and it was in there pretty good. Well, then it pissed me off because this guy was looking at me like, uh-huh. So I took, the saplings are real pliable. So I just wrapped it around my arm like a rope and put my other arm under it and then squatted low like I was doing a squat and then lifted at the same time and ripped it out. And he couldn't, I thought it was a pretty normal thing. He couldn't believe it. And then later that afternoon on my deck, there was a guy building a house behind me for his daughter. And he asked me if I was a power lifter. And I just laughed, said, "No, I'm an old retired, football player." And then I went to the gym that night and the guy at the gym told me, he says, "Yeah, I'm training for a powerlifting meet." And I was like, that's the third time in a day I've heard powerlifting. So I ended up going to that meet, not knowing a damn thing, never lifted before. And I set the state record. And then I later went and set the national record at 28 reps at 242 pounds. That now, mind you, this isn't open. I'm an old guy, so I compete. I was 47 when I set the world record. But and then I went on a year later and set the world record in Little Rock, Arkansas. Not Little Rock, Russellville, Arkansas.
Are you impressed with this guy yet, Don?
So
I'm just listening, man.
I just like to do things, and I get excited about achievements. I grew up pretty rough, and I was born 3 years before they passed the Indian Child Welfare Act, so I didn't get to know my Indian family, and I've now reconnected as an adult, but I just
and I would say you're kind of moderately so Native American or Indian American activist. I would take stances on a lot of important issues.
I would take it more of a slacktivist, to be honest.
Slacktivist.
Yeah, I'm not. A lot of us Indians, they just want to go and pick it, and I guess there's room for that. I guess it's needed, but I'm just not that guy. If I'm gonna go into a location, it's to win. So when I feel I have to go, it's probably because there's violence is needed, and I understand that I'm probably going to lose everything I own. But as old John Henry or Patrick Henry said, give me liberty or give me death, and so I just don't feel it's there yet. So I'm not out doing it. So I'm just more of a slacktivist. I guess
the question I want to ask you though, Shane, is as competitive as you are you competitive with your violence?
I want to stay alive, so I would say I'm very competitive.
Very competitive with my violence.
I'm successfully competitive with my violence so far. Shane, I'm undefeated.
Shane, what I wanted to ask you, what were you doing in the Navy?
Oh, I was just a deck seaman. I was just a squid. I just signed up to go for the GI Bill. I was 16 to start on my senior year because I was supposed to be a genius. I started school early. I was not. I got F's as soon as I hit puberty, like everybody else. And so I graduated. I just turned 17, and I wanted to go to college, and it was impossible for me. So I went joined the Navy, and now my page force is significant. I trained in everything. I learned gunners. Got all my gunners make quals. I was the only E3 to be able to serve petty officer of the deck qualifications. I was a helmsman. I learned all my signalman quals. I could have been a signalman. I learned all my flag hoist and Sims 4 and Morse code. And I was a signalman during con reps. I participated in the two foreign campaigns, Provide Hope and Secure Democracy for Stand That Forland on the Yorktown. And then when my time was up, I got out and went to college, and that's how I got into law enforcement. But I didn't. I enjoyed it, but it was just.
So you were out before Shield or Storm, huh?
That was after I went in after Shield and Storm. Yep. Oh. We dealt with Milosevic over there in Yugoslavia. We fired rockets and stuff into out there in the Adriatic Sea, and we participated in the arms embargo. So we stopped ships that would cross a certain longitude, and they called it the Tom, Dick, and Harry line, which meant no Tom, Dick, or Harry. It was supposed to be across that line.
Right.
So we would stop them, and sometimes they complied, and other times they didn't.
And you were okay with that?
I was just a dumb young kid. I weighed $105. I drank beer and lifted a lot because that's what you did in the Navy. But yeah, I didn't know buck all of anything.
But I love the fact that you served. Now, do you mind talking about personal stuff?
I guess, yeah.
Yes, you mind?
I mean, no, go ahead. No, I got drunk with you on national TV.
I know. I get just the first time either of us were on national television, we were on together with our buddy Kurt Yeager from Sons of Anarchy at the time. And the studio got us drunk before going out.
Well, I'd had the worst trip.
I know your phone got stolen.
By TSA. I really blame it on Kurt. Everything that could go wrong went wrong from the beginning. So my agent booked me for the show on a Saturday. My driver's license had expired the Friday before. You can't get on a plane without a valid driver's license. The flight was on a Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. You can't go.
Wait a minute. If you're an undocumented alien, you can't.
Yeah. Well, this was before those times, and I do speak a little Spanish. Let's see, yo hablo un poquito en español, so I guess I could try to pass as an illegal. But is that what you say, illegal now? Fuck it, I don't care. I just say whatever.
That's what I say. I don't know about anybody else.
Yeah, they've got undocumented, all that stuff. But what's important is, you were working with me on a book, and we got invited to be on a national TV show called Take Part Live. And we're there. We got flown in. Before we went to the show, we had lunch with what's his name from Battlestar Galactica.
Oh
Aaron.
yeah, my buddy Aaron Douglas. Yeah, I reached
Aaron
out.
Douglas,
I said,
nice
hey,
guy. He bought my book.
I said, Aaron, I'm in Burbank, bro. Let's go grab some lunch. He's like, hell yeah, or breakfast. I had those pancakes, man. Those pancakes were so good.
Yeah, and then we go to the studio that evening, and they start feeding us drinks, and we had to walk through from the green room over through the makeup area. And that's when Kurt decides to show us how he can kick with that prosthetic leg.
Bro, he kicked the
shit
shit
out of that wall. And I'm like, oh my God, we better go before we get cut. And we get out there. And the first thing Shane does, he sees that Chris Pratt's wife is the future wife. I forget her first name, Schwarzenegger.
Catherine
Schwarzenegger. And she's like sitting there, and he leans over and he says,
well, it's Kurt's fault.
I like
we
your
were drinking.
Boots. Yeah, I know. It's Kurt's fault.
He's like, yeah, Shane had it terrible. He told the producers my whole trip story, and it's long. And
I just introduced Kurt to Don. I'm hoping that they get to hook up and talk.
Yeah, so he got us drinking, and then in the back room. That's all. Okay, all right, go ahead. Oh, and then he said, can we take drinks out in the...
Yeah, and they said, yeah, they didn't care.
They said no. They told us no. But
did they? I don't remember
but
that.
then Kurt goes, well, they're not, because in our dressing rooms we had the mug. So then Kurt's like, well, we can just pour this vodka straight in our mug. They're not going to know what's in it. So we took straight vodka and our mugs were sipping on it. We took it up on stage with us.
Yeah,
Kurt's
on live TV
influence.
drinking.
Yep.
And but on the way to the stage, we pass Catherine Schwarzenegger, and he says, I love your boots. And she shoots him a dirty look.
But we were sitting back there on the couch. It wasn't even passing. Like we're just sitting there, and it was awkward. So I was, and I'm slurring my words. I'm like, I like your boots.
Yeah, and then he followed up with, my wife has a pair just like them.
Yeah.
And Kurt and I are like, why did you ask her about her boobs?
And I was like, no. I said, I like. They're like, why did you say that? And I was like, say what?
That's why she was giving you the dirty looks, because she heard what we heard.
Oh yeah. So I like, say what? And they're like, you said that about her boobs. I was like, I said shit about her boobs. I said I like her boots. And they're like, man, it's not like you said boobs. And I was like, well, my wife does have a pair, so I guess it fits.
It's true. Nothing you said didn't verbally fit the situation.
It was a mess.
But we just had such a good time. We were out drinking, almost got into a fight that night. I didn't even know it.
Also Kurt's fault.
Yeah, because he hustled that dude.
Yeah. And then told me I had his money because he didn't figure they'd mess with me.
Big money. I mean, if you look at the photo of him, if you're watching the show, you can actually see his photo. I've always said you should just get some of that skin paint and go green and just go as the Hulk, because you look like the Hulk. Jack Kirby's Incredible Hulk. And because you're just such a beefy dude, man. And you stood there. It was so funny. I came walking out. I was hammered on Guinness. I drank that entire pitcher of Guinness. And I walked out in a good mood. And Kurt's sitting on that. What is it?
Hey, you were tearing up those taquitos. You were killing the taquitos.
Yeah, man. I was just hammered and enjoying myself. Oh, I was so happy.
You had your whole mug to yourself.
Oh, big pitcher, drinking it to myself. And then go walking outside, and you're standing there like this with your arms folded like a cop about to, go bad cop on somebody. And I see the dude that he hustled, which I kept calling Kenny, because he looked like one of the South Park characters. He had one of those flappy hats. And I thought it was silly to be wearing that in Los Angeles or in Hollywood, because we were in Hollywood. And Kurt's sitting there.
It depends on what part of Hollywood you're in, dude.
We were in a dive bar. It wasn't the best part.
That's not what I'm talking about.
West Hollywood, right?
No, it wasn't San Francisco.
So Kurt's sitting there with his legs. I think his prosthetic leg was on top. I'm not sure. I think it was, and he's sitting there frowning, looking down, not making eye contact with this guy. I look at you, and I'm like, why is everybody so serious? God, it's just like, I have no idea what's going on. And he proceeds, Kurt, the guy finally, like, he realized he's not getting his money. So he's like, so how'd you lose your leg? And Kurt tells us some bullshit story of rescuing a bunch of old people and kittens from burning apartments. And I'm sitting there listening to this. I'm sitting down, and Shane is right in front of me facing this guy. And I'm listening to Kurt, and I'm like, you were jumped off a second story and got your leg caught up in the rail, is what he was telling him. And it snapped his leg off. And I'm like, I'm glad I didn't say anything, because I'm thinking, that's not how it happened. I know how you lost your leg. What is going on? And then, like, finally, after the guy left, they tuned me in on what was going on. And I'm like, I shouldn't drink around you guys. You guys are going to get into fights, and I'm happy. Because I am, and Shane will tell you, I'm a happy drunk. I'm just a pleasant, friendly guy. But that was in Hollywood. We had a blast. Kurt is, dude, he's an edgy dude, man. And he's fun to hang out with. But you can bet it's not going to be boring when you hang out with him, right?
Oh, yeah. No, there's nothing boring about that guy.
Nothing. And but I wanted to get into some of this stuff because I know Don is got to be curious about what led to you going into law enforcement, because you went to school for it and you wanted to be a cop.
I'm not curious about that.
Okay, never mind then.
All right.
Fucking pigs. I hate pigs.
I'm fucking with you. I'm fucking with you.
But yeah, share some of the story. What led you to do that?
Well, I growing up the way that I did, my parents were addicts, and they're better now. They've got their life together. They got their shit together. But as a youth, it wasn't that way, and it was I don't know. I just kind of wanted to grow up and find the people that were the kids that were like me, and help them and fix them, and the bad guys that would try to harm kids and go get them. And that's the very raw basic element of it. As I got older, it became more complex, especially got out of the military. I wanted the structure I couldn't find in a civilian setting, and police was the closest I could find to the structure. Even though I wasn't in the military long, I did 2 years active and 6 years inactive. They don't even offer 2 years enlistment any longer, I don't think. It's every enlistment's 8 years. You're going to do your active and then your IRR, your inactive ready reserve, no matter what. So that's what kind of I got into it. And a lot of our family were addicts and had been abused or were abusers. And my uncle was the only family member that really wasn't. And he was a deputy of Oakland County and out in Kansas. So he was someone I kind of looked up to. Vietnam vet, real mean old grouchy dude, little salty guy.
I mean, like Don?
Yeah. Uncle Richard was mean. I remember I accidentally busted a window in his basement with a tennis ball, and he picked me up off the ground by my ear.
Ow, dude.
Yeah, it was all red. I had little blood marks underneath it. He was but I shouldn't have been doing what I was doing, and he wasn't like abusive per se. He's very forceful and
and not going to put up with shit. I got
yeah, absolutely. So, let me tell you, I was a punk teenager. Let me tell you, but
I've seen pictures of you, and yeah, I buy that.
Yeah, so that's what got me. That's kind of what got me into law enforcement, and
I know that did this play part of it too, because when you're coming out of the military, those are some of the options that are thrown at you. Working for the post office, law enforcement, and EMS.
Interestingly enough, I did try to get a post office job, and
I think all of us did.
Got my police job first. Yeah, good pay, too.
Hell yeah. My uncle did it, and I was like, hell, I could do that. But I didn't get hired. And I'm like, oh, fuck you guys. But based on your ETS, there's this whole processing thing. You can take your paperwork and start talking to recruiters to go into the postal service. And it's a great retirement package, all that stuff. But law enforcement was something that I wanted to do. And I really considered doing it. I was up there in Washington State, and I tested higher than anybody else, but because I was one of the last people there, bottom of the totem pole, I got booted. And it was affirmative action stuff. And I'm like, I scored higher than anybody, and you're kicking me. Okay. Great psyche, Val. I'm only mildly crazy. So
you got to be crazy anyways to hire. Let's be honest. If you're going to get into law enforcement, you probably shouldn't pass your psyche val, because you got to be something wrong with you to want to do that job.
Is that true, Don?
Well, I got to tell you, you never did ask me what got me interested in law enforcement.
Haven't we talked about that?
And I hesitate to say this, but I was looking for another adrenaline fix after Nam. That's what I was looking for, an adrenaline
Now,
fix.
you were just wanting to be a cop at that point, not a detective yet, right?
Well,
So
you start out uniformed, okay? You gotta work, you gotta pay your dues, you gotta work your way up and do all that. I became a detective when I went into narcotics, and then I worked some undercover narcotics, and from there I became a detective. And that was that was another fix.
Well, how long did it take you though?
Oh, about 6 years, I guess.
6 years.
I told you the story when I was working undercover, where the guy was working undercover on called the cops on me. I told you that story, didn't I? Yeah. I shit you not. When I was in the Army, I got hit in the mouth with a rifle butt, and it broke one of my canine teeth. So I had a dental fixture in there, okay? And when I took that thing out, I scared myself, okay, when I opened my mouth. And so at the time, I was going undercover as a wannabe biker, okay? I had a motorcycle, and this guy that I was taking a look at, and I mean, you know, he was the guy we wanted, but it was a matter of getting a hold of him. I approached him in a dive bar. I sidled up to the bar, got a beer, and started talking to this guy. And I was asking him some questions that I probably shouldn't have asked him. And he gave me a real smart-ass remark. And I turned to him and I smiled with that big hole in my teeth. And I said, "You want to repeat that?" And I kind of freaked him out. And I said, "Look, this is what I'm looking for. So I'll tell you what." He said, look, go down here. And he gave me an address, which was like a block or two away. He said, "And I'll meet you there in like 15 minutes. Well, I went outside and I had an earbud, and one of the guys that was covering me said, "Hey," he said, "guess what?" And I'm looking around, see if there's anybody around. "What?" He said, "That asshole just called the police on you." And I see that, of course, they knew what was going on, the cops who were out there. But he was driving up the street. He drove past, and I'm just standing there like nothing's going on. So, but that was a funny situation.
Hey, we have a super speaker.
Thank you,
from
Martin.
Darius.
Yep, from Darius Munchausen, the single best and safest version of Munchausen for children. And his super sticker is some popcorn. Popcorn. And
he didn't send $1.50. He sent $1.49.
Yeah, $1.49. Why no $1.99, Darius? What's up with that? I still don't understand the $1.99 thing. It's like, is that an option? I don't understand how that shit works. But anyway, buddy, thank you so much. For you, Darius, I'm going to play this very special video.
You don't deserve your family. Who taught Chris to whisper black out of respect for blacks? Me!
Thanks a lot, Darius, and thanks for the popcorn, and thanks for the $1.49, buddy. Yeah, I saw that, and I was actually thinking the same thing because my brain is
Hey, there's my buddy Mark. Hey, Mark.
Mark is saying what I was actually thinking, because like when you said, that's when I got on narcotics, and I'm like going, I mean, were you became a drug addict, or you became a cop that worked in narcotics? And so he said the same thing. I'm like, there you go. Thank you. But that goes back to you, Shane. Let's play a little tennis here. Don has served. Now your turn. Serve back. When you became a cop, how long were you in uniform? How long did it take you to become a detective?
My first police job was 97, and I made detective in 2006. So I think Don's got me by a year.
Ooh, yeah. Do you think it's because you're dumber?
Probably. And uglier too.
I always said Gary is a gorgeous dick, isn't he? He's just a dick.
Hey, give me 30 seconds. I got to get some more coffee.
Oh, get some. Yeah, she needs some more piss water. Got it. So, what do you think, Don? What do you think so far?
This is fun.
Yes.
Hey,
I'm telling you,
by the way, Mark, I hope everything came out good. Mark was going in for an MRI today. He might have to have some surgery on his shoulder. It's been giving him some problems. So I hope that all came out okay. Oh, Das Wolfen just donated $2.
$2. So then there is an option to not put it at $1.99. So now we know. Yes. Thank you, Das Wolfen, for proving that. And 2, look, man, it's BUY. Buy. Learn to spell, motherfucker. Love you, buddy. Of course, if you don't know who Das Wolfen is, you should. You should be watching our show on Wednesdays Wednesday morning with UFO Wednesday. And John is always with us there. He's also with us on Military Monday and on Fantastic Thursday. I know it's not a T word, but there's no word that I could find that sounds like fantastic in it with a TH in it. So I could say fantastic, then it just sounds stupid. But John joins us. He's a very knowledgeable gamer and nerd, all-around nerd. Knows his shit.
I got coffeeed out today, pal.
Did you? Did you crash?
I'm all water.
You're on. I got to tell you, normally I drink water all the time. And because I feel like shit, I've been sick. Fuck it. I have been buying, I have close to about 7 liters of Diet Mountain Dew because I want my caffeine. I got to have it constantly to get me through this, man, because I just want to go lie down all the time. But,
well, in the morning, and I've been doing this literally since 2017. I have, for breakfast every morning, I have a protein drink, a piece of fruit, and a yogurt. Okay.
Right back.
And that's been my diet forever.
Yeah.
Well, for the last, how many years? 6 years now. But recently I started making my own protein drinks. Okay. With protein powder that we get at Costco with a scoop of powdered milk. I throw the yogurt into the blender and a little bit of water, and damn, I got hooked on that. That is some good stuff, man.
It sounds good.
Along with my piece of fruit, which has been apples. So they say an apple a day keeps the doctor away. You know what? I believe that shit.
I also believe that if you hit them with the apple, it'll drive them away. But Das Wolfen said some nice stuff. You know, it's John from VisionCon, mutual friend of yours and mine, Shane. And he says, everyone buy Shane Moore's books. They're awesome. Hey, do me a favor, Das Wolfen. Can you get the link to his store and post that up there? Or if you've got it, Shane, you can give it to me. Your store. Your bookstore.
I mean, I guess you go to Amazon and get a store.
Well, you had your own bookstore. Don't you still have it?
No, when I got involved, okay, so the e-pirates, when they made writing pretty much unprofitable for me, it's a curse. I got popular enough that people wanted my books.
Start pirating, yep.
And I was popular enough that it would circumvent sales, so the e-pirates would start gobbling me up. And if I was a bit unpopular, e-pirates wouldn't give a shit. I mean, they wouldn't load my books up to their sites. So I kind of caught in the middle on the curve. So the example would be I wrote Loose for the Untold Story. It debuted #1 on Amazon's hot new releases for the first 2 months it was out. And then by the third month, the e-pirates got it. And I went from selling 9,000 copies a month to 15. So,
oh man, that's bad.
Yeah, so I just haven't put any new books out.
Well, you started this new business. Tell us about that business.
Oh well, my wife started a t-shirt company. She was a nurse, and I was making pretty good money touring and stuff, and so I said, you're killing yourself being a nurse. Just do something, start our own business. Something that you can do that complements mine that you could sell alongside of me, and then we tour together anyways. And so she started a t-shirt company. She rented space out of the back of a window tint and vinyl company called Guardian Graphics. It was a husband and wife team, and she did her t-shirt company for about a year. They called it Geek Gear Tees. Like, they had a bunch of cool shirts and stuff, and they made good money. And the husband, the place we were renting space running the t-shirts, were going through a divorce, and they were going to sell the business. And the business sold, then we wouldn't have a place for the t-shirts. And her t-shirt company wasn't that so profitable that she worked on it all the time. She had lots of downtime. So in her downtime, she'd learned how to do window tint and vinyl. And we said, hell with it. Why don't we just buy that business and go from there? So she did. And we bought the window tint and vinyl business. We rebranded it. We bought it in June 2015. We rebranded it Phoenix 5 in October.
Right.
And yeah, she's done really well with it. They had an intellectual property.
Yeah, Tracy kicks ass. That's his wife.
Oh yeah.
By the way. Tracy,
I stayed.
Really
I moved my office from home up to her to the building location to her store for about 2 years to make sure she was getting things going and had all the help she needed. And then once things were running smooth, then I went back home. But we had the business had another intellectual property called Tint Slime, and it's a surfactant that you use to apply window tint. And it was pretty small. I think the most that it did was, I want to say, 11 pallets in a year, I think, was the most that it ever sold. And so I made it a separate company, and I've developed 5 new products for it. We've got
I know I did 1 or 2 logos for you.
Yeah, Spider Spit. Yeah, you did our Spider Spit logo. Yeah. So I've now come out with Beetlejuice and Hokahe glass cleaner.
Okay.
Hokahe. A lot of people think, does anyone know what Hokahe means? A lot of people?
No clue.
So a lot of people think it means it's a good day to die, but it actually means let's go, let's do it. That's more of a translation. It's Lakota.
No, Mr. Worf said it best. Today is a good day to die.
So I called the glass cleaner Hokahe. 1 is a homage to my heritage, and 2, before you do window tint, you got to clean glass. So let's go. Let's do it. Let's get this glass clean and get the tinting. So,
one of the things that I find impressive about you, by the way, is when you bring that up, is that you learned the language.
Oh yeah. So Buju Niniji, Anenejiayan, hello my friend, how are you?
Yeah, it's like, I've been friends with you, and you never cease to not impress or amaze me. There's always something new.
Yeah, again, I just like achievements. I just like doing things. Like I said,
Shane, I got to ask you a question, buddy. What is ZOD? What is Zod?
Oh, Zod.
So okay. So have you ever heard of Zombie Squad? Most people have. They're probably the largest zombie cosplay charity survival whatever group. And I was writing the Apocalypse of Enoch, and as the story progressed, I had a need for a cosplay group that would fight zombies when the real zombie apocalypse happens. And I reached out to Zombie Squad, and they were pretty corporated up. And I said, hey, I wanted to include you guys in the story. It'll bring more attention to your program. And I said, and I don't want to create a group that might detract from what you're doing, because I like what you do. And the person I was contacted responded to me essentially they don't allow commercialization of their logo and likeness. Fair, that's fair. But then they pissed me off, and they said there's nothing that you could create that would get popular enough to detract from us. And I said, oh, okay, fair enough.
Run into people like that throughout our careers.
Yeah, fair enough. So actually, my response to them, I think I said sad panda, but okay. and in the email. So I created Zod, which is Zombification, Orientation, and Defense. They wore red and black. They were militant, and they weren't intended to be much of the story. Originally, if Zombie Squad was going to be in it, I was going to have them be pretty integral. But since they weren't, and no one had even ever heard of Zod, I just made them. I almost made fun of them, like their vehicle. They called it the Zodmobile, like just stupid shit, you know. And then they were going to die off, and I would link excerpts of the story. I would leak it. I had to get it approved from New Babel Books and Frank Fradella, but Frank's he understands promotion. So I said, hey, I want to leak this. He's like, all right, go ahead and leak it. So I would leak elements of the story online. And New Babel Books was who was publishing Apocalypse of Enoch. And when 117, so that means he was the 17th member to join Zod. So 100 and up are for people to join. The Zod numbers 00 to 99 were for celebrities or characters in the novel. So my agent number is 050. 117 is he was the 17th person to join, and probably joined the very first day once it became launched at VisionCon, and it launched at VisionCon too. But sorry, I was talking about the chat. I guess I should have clarified chat. But
no, I was reading what he said. John's number 117.
But as I released these excerpts, people thought Zod was cool, and they started cosplaying, and it wasn't even out yet.
Oh, it's ridiculous, dude. It's ridiculous.
There was a guy named Corey Phillips, awesome dude, friend of mine.
Yeah.
And Corey, he kind of took the reins of Zod, and he became the leader, or de facto leader, if you will. Like you'd have somebody for the 501st, and he was organizing stuff, and he really put Zod on the map. He went gung ho with it, and he called the Zod vehicle, instead of a Zodmobile, he called it a ZERV, which was Zod Emergency Response Vehicle, ZERV. I thought that's cool. I was like, I got to go back and change shit now. So I went back and edited the novel right before launch. But yeah, Zod came big. There's I don't know how active they are now with COVID and everything going on, and I kind of stepped back from touring to focus on the business that my wife bought and helping her, and we had some life challenges.
It was really also, I want to point out, that was on the onset of the Me Too thing, and you and I both felt like we wanted no part of this. We wanted, so we both stopped going.
I had an anonymous Facebook, and I call out nonsense when you see nonsense. For example, the gender pay gap. It's nonsense. It's a myth. White privilege is a myth. It's not a sociological term. It was created in 1986 by a 4-year degree English professor who wrote an opinion piece. Peggy Hilliard, if I remember correctly, was her name. And she wrote an op-ed in which she said white privilege. And it was never peer reviewed. It was an opinion piece. And she admitted in her first 2 lines it was anecdotal. It was never peer reviewed by any social scientists or the social scientist community. And it just took hold, and that became, so I call all this stuff, I just call it is what it is, you know, just as I call out theocrats, I call out those things. Well, they were getting pissed at me, and I got a Facebook anonymous, like someone just made an account, a no name, no picture account, and said that if I ever appeared in public again at a convention, they would make a fake sex assault claim on me. And then they linked a book called Damn, and it was, that's the acronym. I think it was Damn. It essentially was, it says how to take down a powerful straight male, and you just make sex assault claims, and it is a book and it's on Amazon. You can Google it, and it's got millions.
It's pathetic, dude.
So like any regular, if you know me, I was like, oh yeah, well, piss off, let's go, and I got lawyers too, let's go. And I was at VisionCon, and I was in the elevator. They had just moved it to Branson, or it had been the 2nd or 3rd year it was in Branson. And it was a wonderful facility. The hotel.
It was the last one I saw you at. I remember.
Yeah. I was with Katie Townsend, my friend. She's a voice actor. She did Kate in Fallout 4, and she's tons of Nickelodeon shows. She's wonderful actress, very talented, very pretty, and we were together there. She was appearing with me, and it was late at night, and I'd been drinking on a Saturday night, and I was headed back to my hotel room, and I got into the elevator, and 3 girls got in the elevator right behind me.
No.
And as the door started to close, I just got this weird vibe, and I just got out of the elevator. And I was thinking to myself, had I not gotten out, they could have made up any false claim about me, had 3 witnesses against 1, and there's nothing I'm convicted. I don't even, they don't even have to file a lawsuit. They just got to make the complaint, and I'm convicted. Anything they said would be believed. And especially being a straight male, and a straight male that looks like I do. I mean, you talk about overweight people being judged by your appearance. Well, muscular is also judged by their appearance. And so I didn't have any of the, I just like, no, that was it. And then it kind of freaked me out a little bit. And I thought, well, were they just 3 random young women, or was those the group, And and then I started thinking, well, I'm going to have a woman travel with me everywhere we go. And I was just like, no, it just wasn't worth it. So I really started limiting where I went. There's no knock on VisionCon. They do a great show. I love the people that do it. It's a very safe show, but society was not really safe for me. So I just kind of backed out of, I really stopped doing that. Was the beginning of the end of a lot of appearances for me. And of course, life and other challenges kicked in and was the nails in the coffin for my appearances.
Yeah. And I felt the same way because, there's this feeling of a lack of safety for us.
Well, I mean,
that at any moment you could be attacked and nothing you could do about it.
I'm an indigenous male that has experienced racism firsthand many times.
A lot of it, I admit, was from me.
That doesn't count. Many times in my life. And I had people on the internet calling me Nazi. It was insane.
Oh, I've seen that, dude.
Yeah, Shane's a Nazi. Don't book him for your show. He's a Nazi. And I was like, whoa, I couldn't even be a Nazi. I'm indigenous too. It was just our society was sick and it wasn't well, and I didn't want to get.
Well, now, Shane, to be perfectly honest, this is a little known fact, but the Krauts in World War II even had a general officer that, believe it or not, was Jewish. Now, there was a reason for that, but they had a Jewish general officer in the Wehrmacht. Believe that or not.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It was for publicity.
Well, I would imagine, before you answer, because you know and I don't, but I would imagine it was in the same way at which Israel had its head of state, even though Rome owned them.
Oh, with Herod.
Yeah, everybody knew this guy was Jewish, okay, but it was some kind of thing that Hitler had decreed, and if he decreed it, hey, that's the way it was. So I to be perfectly honest, I forget now exactly what the reason was, but the guy was real. He was an actual Jewish German general.
Well, and I think a lot of people forget, especially in our modern society, as we begin to George Orwell and change the meaning of words, and not colloquially, but foundationally. Well, Hitler was right wing. He was fascist, and Mussolini.
No,
he
was very left wing.
Correct.
Socialist.
Yes. Yeah, Shane knows.
Yes.
Shane knows.
Mussolini.
We talked about this.
Mussolini was a leftist. He
loved fascist.
He loved French Marxism, and fascism is not a de-evolution of a right-wing ideology, but rather a de-evolution of a society that goes towards a totalitarianism or an authoritarianism or both, at which you must have a level of extremism to motivate your population. We saw it in Germany. We saw their ethno supremacy was the foundation for their extremism, and I think we see that today in our wokeism as a level of the extremism that will be used to usher in American fascism. There's a very predominant feminist writer named Naomi Wolf, and she was pretty critical of the right wing around 2000. She wrote a book called The End of America, and she's done lots of topics and speeches on it, and now she's been canceled because she's warning that while there was a danger of the right ushering fascism long ago through a theocratic belief, now the danger is from the woke dogma being perpetrated by the left. And the worst part about it is it comes from a great place. Who doesn't want equal rights for people? Who doesn't want good things, but the streets,
which is not what they're fighting for. They're not fighting for equality,
but they believe they are, and thus makes it like therein lies the problem. Just as look, I was born 3 years before they passed the Indian Child Welfare Act, right? I was born in 1975. It was passed in 1978. The Indian Child Welfare Act ended without a doubt, government schools, boarding schools, parental rights, etc. So I was born 3 years before they passed the ICWA. I'm living proof of what happens. And the mantra behind the ICWA, the whole wisdom behind it was this statement here: kill the Indian, save the man. And they believed that they were doing good, and obviously we're not. And I think that's where we're at now. We got a lot of people believe they're doing good, and they're doing incredible harm to our great republic.
Yeah, I agree. And it's one of the reasons why I always refer to you not only as a great Native American Indian, but also as a great American. I love that you're very patriotic.
Well, my ethnicity serves at greater rates per capita than any race in the military.
Yeah, I told you about the young gentleman. He was Chippewa that I served with in the Army. Couldn't shoot worth a shit, though. I had to shoot for him, qualify him. He sat in the other foxhole. I sat in one, and I had already qualified, so I didn't have to worry about it. And I shot. I changed lanes, and I started shooting down his lane to qualify him. And I remember when I was training him, because I was supposed to help him learn how to shoot, and he couldn't. His eyes were fucked up. He needed the right lenses, and he didn't have the right lenses. So I'm like, okay, you'll get corrective lenses eventually that'll work with you. But until then, I'm going to do this for you. I'm not going to make you anything better than a marksman. But when I was training him in the hall, we had the laser rifle and shooting these miniature targets that are like 15, 20 feet away. And I remember saying to him, I said, he wasn't hitting anything. I said, pretend they're white, for God's sakes. Shoot something. He just laughed.
See, that's the other thing, too. In my indigenous communities, we got a lot of young indigenous people that have grown up in such a way that it's easy to point fingers at why it's that
I'm
way.
offended by that.
Yep.
I'm fucking indigenous. My father was fucking indigenous.
Some of the things they have are fair critiques, but what they don't realize is that much of this nation was founded on indigenous principles. Like you have 6 nations, the Mohawks, the Onondaga, the Tuscarora.
Yes.
You've got, look at the Pan-Indian alliance that Tecumseh brought together. He was the son of Blackfish, who battled with Daniel Boone, and Tecumseh united the Pan-Indians. Now, of course, he was inspired by the colonies uniting, but the colonies then united based on the 6 nations. So, like, that's the thing too with our country, and I'm a big proponent of
one of our
unity.
most honored generals was named after Tecumseh.
Yep. Tecumseh was a great war chief. In fact, he was probably, outside of Crazy Horse, was probably one of the best war chiefs I think that we've had. And there's probably more decorated ones, but in regards to battles, but they were good war chiefs in that they had standards for how they treated prisoners. They had standards. Now, Blackfish, not so much. Blackfish was a little rough, but look at the times. But they weren't Andrew Jackson rough. They didn't burn women and children in teepees and stuff. Now, of course,
I'm not a fan of Jackson at all.
Before the American Revolution broke out, there was another war right before that, which we colloquially call the French Indian War.
Correct.
Now, I come from a part of the country where that hit hard in Pennsylvania. Yep. Sure. I live right off the Kintanning Trail. Are you familiar with the Kintanning Warpath?
Yep.
Yeah, I live just below it. And during the French-Indian conflict, they came through there, and those warriors were beyond vicious. I mean, sure. We're talking beyond vicious. That was one of the most bloodthirsty conflicts that we ever had in what today is America. That's something I think a lot of people ought to go back and take a look at. The
other thing too, if you look at the French Indian War, France claimed everything west of the Mississippi up to Mexico, and Mexico, of course, we know had all the way into California. And what these European colonies or countries would do is they would get war bands of young soldiers and pay them go and do the things. So a great example would be when the Illinois Federation was wiped out of existence. They used Iroquois scouts and Iroquois war bands, but it wasn't the Iroquois nation, right? They take these rogue groups and they would go in, and they were better at it.
Mercenaries. They were mercenaries.
Sure. Absolutely. And we kind of even see that today in mercenary groups. Hell, we've got. I'm not well versed in the Russian Ukraine conflict. I'll wait till it's over and then learn it. But they've got rogue groups over there doing some pretty nasty stuff. So I mean, it was a rough time to be alive. There was all kinds of nasty stuff going on. Slavery wasn't even really viewed as that a bad thing yet in humanity.
No, and women and children were open season, baby.
Yep. Yeah. Soft targets. And so it was a rough time to be alive. But a lot of people don't even realize they bag on our country, but like the Indian Removal Act only passed by like 4 or 5 votes, passed the House. Like Daniel Boone voted against it. And of course it cost him. Andrew Jackson later had him removed, funded his opponent, and he lost his next election. And of course he then went to Texas and died in the Alamo. But like
you're thinking of Davy Crockett, not Daniel Boone.
Crockett. Yeah. David Crockett. Yep. So
Jackson, just so people know, there was an incident that took place between him and the people of Congress, and they were saying, we can't break these treaties. Oh.
Is that break time? Oh, I see the chat. I missed it. She warned us. We're bad. We should have. I missed it. It'll happen.
She'll do her thing. Go for it.
I blame Gary. I blame Gary and Don. You guys were the hosts. You gotta shut me up.
Well, we get so caught up in our conversations. Hi guys, this is Gary from Pop Culture Minefield here on KGRA, and we're leaving for our first break. I hope we survive.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Behind every folded flag is a family. When American lives are lost in defense of our freedom, TAPS is there to help the friends and families of those who have served and died. TAPS, the Tragedy Assistance Program for survivors. We provide help, hope, and healing every day. Visit us online at TAPS.org or call 1-800-959-TAPS.
Are you looking to go on a faraway journey that is magical and mysterious, reaping on mystical legends? If so, then Mysterious Adventure Tours is perfect for you. Imagine a voyage to explore ancient mysteries of Ireland, haunted majesties of Scotland, or their chilling Birth of the Vampires in Romania. These small esoteric getaways are limited and do fill fast. So, go to MysteriousAdventureTours.com and book your trip soon.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected, only at kgradb.com.
Oh wow, we survived! Welcome back from the commercial break. Now for some more Pop Culture Minefield on KGRA. Now we're back.
And do sound like a nerd on that.
Hey, we survived. Anyway, we're back with my old friend and Don's new friend, Shane Moore. We're discovering over the last hour, you're an interesting kind of okay guy.
I'm all right, I guess.
You're all right.
I don't kick puppies more than once a month.
I took a shine to you the moment I met you. It's like, I like this guy. And in fact, I was supposed to be, I don't know if I ever became a character in one of your books, but I said, I want my character, if I'm in the apocalypse, I want to be this guy, the one guy that eats flesh, but he's not a zombie. He just was curious.
Well,
and have him die a stupid death.
In AoE, if you cooked it well enough, you probably wouldn't get it. It's a bloodborne pathogen,
right?
It's a RNA.
Yeah, you did a lot
retrovirus.
of medical research.
I did.
I love that about you. You are a researching fool. I love that about.
Well, I want to get it right. You know, it started me on that. My very first book, and it's terrible. It's built my career on it, so the story is good, but woo, it was rough. Because I didn't know how to be a writer. I wanted to be one, but I talked about the width of a cannon bone, which is the bone in the horse that determines how much weight the horse can carry in terms and how long. They got a nice little formula on it, and cannon bone breaks, like that's it. You know, your horse is done. And so I talked about the cannon bone size, and I knew that because growing up around horse people, right? So, but turns out there was a reviewer that was a horse person and just loved that I talk about that and gave me just a beautiful 5-star review on a 3-star at best book. And I just meant a lot to me. I thought, you know what? I'm going to make sure that I know what the hell I'm talking about when I'm. In fact, if you recall, Gary, that's what led to some of our early disagreements on your project when you hired me to write on Vindicated.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, Kurt set me straight when he says it doesn't have to. I said something like, I was pissed. I said, doesn't make sense. And he goes, doesn't have to make sense, Shane. It has to make money. And he says, you ever seen in a TV show the car blows up halfway off the cliff? Doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense, but it looks good.
He goes, people loved it back then. So I was like, oh, okay. So I shut up and did what I was told after that.
And we're good friends, and we like working together. And gosh, the one thing I like is also both of you and Don both write. Don is a very good writer too. And
well, I'm not very good, so Don probably is.
Well, you're like Tom Clancy in that yours is more focused on the technical crap, and which is good. I like that. But at least you're better than that one dude. I don't want to say his name because you met him. I referred to him as his writing ability is like a sit rep. Everything you wrote sounded like a sit rep. And I'm like, you don't know how to write.
You could do that, I guess, if you did like a narration or something. I mean, you could get away with it.
It's okay if it's done in a proper narrative, but he would do his in like breakdown sit rep. You know what a sit rep's like?
Yeah, I know.
They just give you the pertinent, important information, nothing more. And that was his. And he's like, he tried to say he was a better writer than me, and I'm like, not on my worst day. But let's get into law enforcement, and I'd like to hear both you guys share some stories of this. But I'd like you to start us off, Shane, with where you went with that day, the day. You know the one I'm talking about. What led up to that?
Well, we had, I assume you mean 2004.
Yeah, when you guys
we got a 911 hang-up call. We'd been to this house a couple times. Father was a husband, whatever, was a truck driver, and they were, they're doing like a lot of American families trying to make ends meet. Had a lot of kids, more bills than money, and like a lot of us at the time. And I learned secondhand, and I don't know how true it is, but he had caught her having an affair. And they had an altercation, and she came to the police department and stated that he had threatened to kill her. And she said he had wrote this long out statement. He had presented 2 knives he threatened to slit her throat with. Described them in color. They were like a 4-inch to 6-inch folding knife from a truck stop type knife,
Right.
And if I remember correctly, one was red and one was black, and don't quote me on that, but she described them. And he did this and that, and we asked her if she wanted to file charges, and she said no. And I didn't have enough for victimless prosecution. She came to the police department. I didn't respond to the resident, so there was nothing to do victimless prosecution. So she didn't want charges filed. There was nothing we could do. So, and this was on September 10th. And I had said, well, if he comes back, I guess call us. Like, there's really nothing. If you got more problems, there's really nothing. You don't want to file charges. There's really nothing we can do. You've documented it. That's good. If you need to seek an order of protection, you can do so, on Monday, but there's really not else a whole lot we can do for you. And to preface this, that night there was a carnival in the town nearby, a Lions Club carnival, and there was a cop from that town, and he said he was wanting to come work part-time for us. And I said, well, it ain't like here. Like, it's a little rougher. I said, you better be prepared to roll your sleeves up. And then, of course, this night occurred. Well, 3 minutes into the after midnight, which would made it September 11th, 2004, we got a 911 hang-up call back at that residence, and I responded, and I was at first on the scene, and I seen that the door had been kicked open. At least it appeared to be kicked open. It was kind of hanging cockeyed, and I could see in the residence, and he was on one side of the table, and she was on the other, and they were kind of doing that circle do-si-do thing. And
right,
I hit my air horn to spook him, so he would leave her alone or stop whatever he was doing. And he seen me, and he turned and just ran towards the kitchen. And I knew the kitchen was there because we had been in that residence before for disputes. And I also knew that there was a back door. So I called out a foot chase, and I ran to the back door. And as I was running around the house, he burst out the back door, and I was chasing him on foot. And I think I hollered some expletive at him to try to get him to stop. I insulted him or something. I don't know. And he just kept running. And he circled around a garage, and it was kind of wooded area, and it was dark, and it looked like he reached in his pocket and he just tossed, like you'd throw a frisbee. And I thought, fuck, he's throwing drugs, And so I just really just turned on the jets, and I was a linebacker at the time, and my 40 was 4.59, so I was closing on him quick. And he stuck his hand in his left pocket, and I just I tackled him, and we stumbled to the ground. But I was going so fast, and I'm so much heavier than he was that. So I was reading in this comment. I breached the back door. I technically I didn't breach the door. I pursued the back door. But we tumbled to the ground, and then we went to our feet, and it looked like he was reaching for my gun with his left hand, and I felt it pinch, and I grabbed his hand and I turned it over, and like a little arm bar thing, and forced him into the ground. And then the knife fell, and there was blood, and I thought, oh, fuck. And a wise officer would have pulled my weapon and detransitioned and then used lethal force, but I was already in control of the situation. I was afraid that if I disengaged, would I be able, maybe I would lose the dominant. I was in a very dominant position, so I gave him 3 blows to the back of the head with my fist, and fisting, and then we handcuffed him up and took him away. And interestingly enough, the blood on the hand was his, so he wasn't throwing dope.
His hand slid up the blade when he stabbed you.
It closed on him.
Oh.
So when he was running the first flip, he wasn't throwing dope. He was trying to flip that knife open, and he dropped it because he was running. And then the second one, he put it in his pocket, and he had the other knife. And as you remember, she had said there was 2 knives. Of course, I wasn't thinking about her statement. I was effecting an arrest. And so when he went to flip it open, it didn't lock. So then when he stabbed me with it above my duty belt, or my weapon, it hit my vest and closed on his hand. And it only penetrated my vest a little bit. And it closed on his hand and cut his hand all up, which was what the blood, it cut his hand bad. And that's what the blood was. And
Connor's a motherfucker.
Yeah, so he got arrested, and we took him up, and had to get an ambulance for him. He was complaining of headaches and loss of vision, and so they sent him off to the hospital for get a fit for confinement. And turns out my blows were significant enough that fractured his skull in the back of his skull. And
nice.
He had
Hulk smash.
Yeah, he had blood on the brain, if I remember correctly. He was in a coma for a little while.
Oh, a little bit of a hematoma, huh?
Yeah, he
subdural.
So yeah, it was a thing, and then after that, there were complaints made that I used excessive force because I punched him, which in law enforcement, a lot of public thinks that cops can't punch you, but they can. It's called hard hand contact. It's in your force continuum.
Yeah.
And I could have used deadly force, of course. So they complained to the chief. The family did. And
oh, you hit him. Why didn't you just shoot him?
Yeah, right. So the chief was an old Dallas cop, and he was like, look, if it had been any other officer in our department, they're not as physically capable as Shane, they'd have shot him or should have shot them. And so they complained up to county. Now, county doesn't have jurisdiction on us, but they complained to the sheriff, and the sheriff says, hey, look, I don't have jurisdiction over this, but none of our officers are physically as capable as Shane, and we probably would have had to shoot him. So then they complained with District 11 Police Integrity Unit, and it went all the way up to Obama when he was the senator and of Illinois, and was he governor? I can't even remember, but I got a letter from Obama saying that deadly force was warranted, and there was the integrity unit wasn't going to do anything.
Did it make you want to vote for him later?
I did vote for him. Yeah, I voted for Obama twice. Yep. Yeah, I
feel bad.
No, I didn't vote for him for that. I voted for him. I liked his policies. You got to remember, Obama was for a border wall, and I'm a 2000s liberal. It just happens to be a right winger in today's age. I'm not a Republican. I'm an
80s Democrat. So yeah, I get you.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't even realize. They're like, well, you voted Trump. And I was like, Trump ran in support of gay marriage. He's the first president elected to ran in support of gay marriage. Now, that's not saying, I'm not saying Hillary
he also
didn't support
gay marriage before the Clintons did. Yeah.
So, I mean, but I want to go on. I've got my own issues with Trumpy, but I voted for him. But in any case, everyone's like, yeah, so that's, went all the way up to Obama when he was in Illinois, and I got my letter. The state's attorney gave me the knives in the evidence destroyal. They got an evidence destroyal order and just gave them to me, and so I've got them.
Oh, you still have them?
Yeah, I got them in the evidence bag. Never opened them. I don't know why.
The next time I come see you, I'm going to want to play with them.
No, you can't get them out.
Oh man.
Yeah, I got a mental issue. I don't know. I got taking them out. My wife wanted.
No, I get it.
My wife's like, let's get them bronze, and I was like, I don't want to celebrate them.
No,
but
fuck those things.
But I don't want to get rid of them either. It's weird. It's like me and that knife have some sort of weird bond, but it's staying the fuck in that sealed bag. But yeah, so that was 2004. That was my thing. 1870s Democrat, you son of a bitch. I know what the 1870s Democrat.
Yeah, I know exactly what that means. Goddamn Dixiecrat.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny about that is a lot of people don't realize that there were 5 indigenous tribes that kept slaves, and the Cherokee kept slaves up to 10 years after the Civil War was over and the slaves were freed. They refused to give them up. Yeah, I don't let Gary play with any of my stuff. He'll break it.
That's my girlfriend, by the way.
Oh, nice.
She shits on me more than anybody in the chat.
As she should. She got license. Yeah, so that was my 2004 incident. I later got 2005. I got my second life-saving commendation. I got a medal, and then I earned Officer of the Year in 2005. But I'll be honest, my 2005 Officer of the Year was a direct result of my PTSD from that night because, fuck, I became the cliche, man. I poured myself into my work. I lived, eat, slept. I made detective. I went and got my certifications for search warrant preparedness. I wrote my own search warrants. I built a relationship with the Judge Deal at the Third Circuit or the Third Circuit. So when I had a warrant typed up, I'd call him. He'd show up at 3 a.m. We'd meet in the middle. He'd sign it. I go execute, do my warrant return service, make my arrest, and then bring him for charges. And then the state's attorney would get real pissed off. He's like, I didn't sign off on this. And I said, well, I don't need you to write my search warrant. I can write it myself. He's like, well, I ain't prosecuting it. And he was an old Chicago copper too. He was all about it was his way or no way. And I said, well, don't prosecute it. I don't give a fuck. That's your job. I did my job. I'm a witness now. Do whatever you want with it. Bad guy's in jail. Let him go. Prosecute him. That's on you. He'd get mad. He'd throw shit on his desk and kick his trash can, and I'd kick
You're
it
like
back.
Harry Callahan.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, and he was proud that he never had a computer in his office, which always was weird to me. But he's retired now. But you can imagine the guy's name, old Vince Morath. I never had any issues with him outside of our working relationship. I think we were very similar. So we butted heads. Now, I talked about my awards. I would be remiss not to talk about my deficits, if you will. I got suspended a lot as a police officer. I got suspended as much as I got awards.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. So my favorite time of being suspended was there was a guy that beat up 2 of our cops. He was kind of a badass. He was a Bronco rider and been to prison before. And he had beat up 2 of our cops and got escaped on a domestic. He's a woman beater. And I was on a traffic stop, and the lady, the woman driver was DUI, and the male passenger was 1099. So I had to sit for the vehicle. So I'm sitting on this vehicle on the side of the road waiting for tow to show up. My sergeant come up to transport, and that guy sees us on a traffic stop, and he stops, rolls the window down, flips us off. Fuck you, pigs, and it spills his tires. Took off, and I just threw the clipboard in the ditch. It's got my paperwork in it. Threw it in the ditch. Started jumping in my car. My sergeant goes, "What are you doing? You can't go after him." I didn't listen. I started my 3-point turn. I rolled my passenger side window down and said, "Just tell me how many days suspension I'm getting when I get back." And I went and chased him down, and he pulled in /1050 into a bar, an old rural bar parking lot. And he jumped out, and I jumped out, and he went to jail that night, and I wasn't injured. So I'll leave the details up to you guys.
1099 is a plate call, right?
1099's wanted. He's got a warrant.
Oh, got a warrant. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, my bad. I should have said the guy had a warrant. So yeah, he went to jail that night. Later went to prison. And what was great was one of his family members wasn't a dirtbag, sent him a signed copy of my book for him to read while he was in prison.
Really?
Yep. Yeah, they told me that. They said,
"Oh shit!"
I'm sure he trashed it, but
I'm sure, but that's funny.
Yeah. I said, well, if you'd have told me that's what you're doing with it, I'd have gave it to you for free. Used to you spending $15 for my satisfaction, but
hey, any of this stuff triggering anything with you, Don, as far as wanting to share some of your stuff?
Well, yeah, we all have stories. We all have stories that have been out there in the field like that. But do you guys remember back in around 81, 82, and I'm trying now to think of his damn name. He was a mountain guy, a mountain man, a trapper. This was in the state of Idaho.
Because that's where, by the way, Shane, that's where he was a cop.
Oh, well, nice. I was a cop in Pennsylvania too when I came back from the Army. But anyway, this guy was a real. He in many ways you could call him an anarchist. He had been a Vietnam draft dodger. Didn't have anything against violence. No.
No. Okay.
No. His name will come to me.
Yeah, Kaczynski was the dude I'm thinking
Kaczynski was the Unabomber. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, old Teddy.
As a matter of fact, Gary, hang on. Talk for a minute. I'm going to track this guy's name down so you all know who the hell I'm talking about.
Yeah. What year did you become a cop, Shane?
97, my first year.
97. That was the first year I moved to Missouri. That was the year I moved during the fall. Man, oh man, 97. Lost in Space. I love that movie. 97.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what I remember best about 97 was that damn movie.
You know, Don,
Claude Dallas. Claude Dallas.
Claude Dallas.
Do you remember the Claude Dallas case?
I do not.
I don't. Not off the top of my head. Maybe if you describe it.
Okay. This guy was a mountain man, so-called mountain man, hunter, trapper. Anyway, there were two game officers that knew about this guy, and Dallas was not one to follow state game regulations, if you know what I mean. Anyway, they found him. They were going to ticket him on something, and he shot and killed both of them. Then he quartered them.
Ugh.
Okay, he quartered them, carried them off, and dumped them. Well, I got called out. As a matter of fact, a shitload of police from various agencies got called out, and we tracked him down, and there was a shootout. Okay, he got hit in the foot and the heel. All right, and ended up capturing him. Well, he got slammed. He got convicted and slammed. I think initially they were going to give him the death penalty, but it turned into life in prison instead. Well, the son of a bitch escaped from prison in 85, I believe it was. And he had help. He had a girlfriend that he met as a pen pal, and she was in the state, and they got serious with each other. Well, she came out, and the guy was certainly smart. And originally, Gary, if I'm not mistaken, he was back in your part of the country, originally from Virginia, or maybe West Virginia. So at any rate, he was gone for almost a year. Now, this is a weird thing. I was flying to, I think I was flying back east. This was about the end of 85. I was flying back east for something. And I was at the airport in Denver, all right? And I'm walking through the concourse, and I saw a guy, and I said, Jesus, that looks like Dallas. And I kind of sidled up, and I looked, and he could have been a carbon goddamn copy of Claude Dallas. So I kind of wandered off, went to a courtesy telephone. I called up the whoever it was that answered on the other end. I said, put me in touch with security. I identified myself. And I got a security officer on there, and I said, look, I am not positive, but I'm pretty positive that I see an escaped felon here in the concourse. And I told him who it was. And at that time, this guy, his name was very well known. This was about the end of 85, somewhere around 1985.
So you could have lethal force that escaped felon.
Well, I didn't have any weapons or anything on me. I was in the airport.
Oh, okay.
So next thing I knew, they had cops from everywhere surround this guy. I mean, they just, they swarmed him. And it turned out it wasn't him. Dallas later was captured, okay? And they put him back in prison, and he would have got additional time. But here's the thing that blew my mind. He today is a free man. He got out of prison, okay? Now, this would have been almost 40 years ago when this case happened, or it would have been 40 years ago. But I keep thinking to myself, why is that son of a bitch out of prison? Because those 2 game wardens don't get a reprieve. Okay. They're still dead.
Yep.
And this is part of American jurisprudence that just makes me crazy. But at any rate, yeah, that's my story about that.
You know what affected me most as a police officer wasn't 2004, but a death notice that we gave on a woman. She'd married her high school sweetheart. They were in their late 60s, early 70s. And he was a truck driver. They didn't have much money. They had a nice little house. What was that?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Sounded sexy.
They had a nice little house, and he got killed in a truck crash in Ohio. And me and the chaplain went to give him her death notice, and it was rough.
Yeah. I was telling Animal one night, I said, you know, because I've been there. I have tried to save a lot of people. I would say 60% don't make it. You're just doing your best. And I said, I remember this one time, this kid had drowned, and under his parents' watch. And we had hoped, because it was up in Washington. So we were hoping, because the water was colder, that we might be able to run. We weren't able to save him. And she walked out from behind that curtain after the doctors called it. And she targeted me and just fucking hit me so hard.
Yeah. That's
I saw it coming too. I wasn't going to stop it. I was going to let her hit me. And it pissed me off. But I understood, you know, she's mad at herself. And I took it for her, you know, because she knows inevitably the blame's really on her and her husband for that kid drowning. And I was I was able to, to take it. And I'm like, you know, it's part of my job. I was an idiot. You know, but
I tell you,
it gets emotional doing some of the work, dude.
I'm 0-8 on CPR. So if you're choking or down, better call somebody else.
Call somebody else.
Hey, Shane.
Odds are all
Shane.
I'm doing is breaking your ribs. I ain't helping you.
Shane.
Yeah.
I delivered a baby.
Yes.
Nice.
I delivered a baby.
I broke a bunch of ribs on some comatose people that later died 8 times.
They didn't survive.
They did
not.
You
know, the rule is if you didn't break ribs, you're not doing it right.
Yeah, it was rough.
That was our rule. If you are doing CPR, proper CPR as a medic, and you don't break some ribs, you are doing it wrong.
I was doing it right.
Goddamn right. Not to mention you caveman hulked the back of some dude's head once. Caved it in a little. Gave him a nice little subdural hematoma.
A dent. Gave him a dent. Just a little dent.
Well, in the first one, my first CPR was on an old coal miner who had a heart attack, and his wife found him on the floor of the bedroom. And he'd been on the ground a long time. And I really only started CPR because she was standing there screaming. And I felt like I had to do something. So I started CPR. I mean, it was like a long, long time.
Oh my God, as you're doing it, I hope this guy's dead.
He wasn't in rigor or nothing, but he was I mean, his lips were cyanotic, and I didn't think it was going to go anywhere, but that was my first one. So I guess that one doesn't count because I knew he wasn't going to make it. And one of the 8 also was a guy that hung himself. Caught his wife cheating on him, and allegedly, and hung himself in the garage, and she found him, and he'd been up there hanging longer than the whole coal miner had been down. I knew that one he wasn't coming back. And then their dog bit me. It bit me good, and I started to pull my gun, and I thought, this dog's just scared. It was hiding under a car. Sees all the ambulance, the lady screaming. Right. Some guy in uniform stinking a gun oil walked by, and it come out from under that car and latched onto my ass.
Yummy.
I backhanded it with my fist, and it ran.
So did the dog breach The back door?
The dog, it did reach. It made new back doors.
New back doors.
For every tooth.
Well, I'm glad you brought up dogs, because this leads me to want to bring up something that was very emotional for a lot of us with you. Was you've got some beautiful pitties, man. I love your dogs.
Oh, yeah.
They are just the sweetest dogs. You know, they really are. I like them a lot. And you had an asshole neighbor that tried to murder your dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Over the tainted, poisoned beef.
See, I thought
meatballs.
I thought you were going to stick with the police element. I was going to talk about the dog fighting ring. My department shut down, and I ended up.
Well, we can segue right into that one if you want to. But I really want you to tell the story about what happened with your dog and the fight you got into.
So I talked earlier in the interview. I talked about how I worked at my wife's business location to help her get it up and going. And once that was smooth, I came back and started working from home. Well, what we did was we wrapped my Hummer into her business logo so she could get more attention for her business. So she drove it back and forth to work. So there were no cars here. And for 2 years, I had not been at home during the day. My dogs were outside. Now I live in a gated community, and I've got a fenced backyard. And it's a big, tall fence, a big, expensive, tall metal fence with little spiky things all fancy on top and shit. And my dogs were just barking up a storm, and I stuck my head out the sliding door onto the deck, and I said, "Hey, shut the fuck up," yell at my dogs. And I look over, and the neighbor's there, and he's got a stainless steel bowl, and he's got blue rubber gloves on, and he's dropping meat down to him, which I grew up on a farm. That ain't no big deal. You feed the dog the meat scraps, and my concern was it had bones in it. I think it was pretty cool he was giving my dogs the meat scraps, So I went down to the deck and went down the stairs and around towards the dogs, and I get over there. Oh, he had a blue rubber glove on, and he waved. I waved at him, and he waved back, and I see the glove. I was like, yeah, but hey, you can get.
You fucking waved at you?
Oh yeah, I waved at him. He waved back. And the gloves in itself wasn't that big of a deal. I know that you can get butcher's warts from the virus inside, beef blood. So I wasn't whatever. So I went around to make sure the meat didn't have any bones in it, and they're frozen ass meatballs. They're frozen. And I picked one up, and I was like, the little white fat that's in hamburger. I was like, well, that's weird. It was all triangular. Then I got to looking closer, and I was like, that's like bluish white. And then I picked up another one and realized he was poisoning my dogs. I said, "You motherfucker." And I said, "I'm going to fucking kill you." And I run, put all the meatballs in a tub. I ran in the house. I threw it on the counter, and I busted out the front door, and I started over to his house. I swear if I'd have got my hands on him, I would have made a young man dumb decision. That's all I can say about that. Well, he's peeled off out of his driveway. He's gone. And then I calmed down a little bit, and I started thinking of act like a 40-year-old. So instead, then I called the sheriff's department, and they came, investigated, and he tried to claim he was out of state, shaved his goatee and everything. So they sent the meatball stuff off to the crime lab, but they didn't have a control sample. So when you send stuff off, as Don probably knows, when you deal with the crime lab, you need a control sample to verify. They can say what's in the meatballs, but it's hard to say what is in the meatballs, right? So I couldn't, and the police couldn't get a search warrant for his house, right? And the search warrant is Western Union, so you need somebody to have seen something in the house. So what I did was I hired and I also know I was retired at the time, so I know that I am not subject to the search rules, the Fourth Amendment rules that the police are, right? It's the criminal, so they're much more restrictive than a private citizen. So I hired a private investigator because his house was for sale already, which is why he was killing my dogs. He thought my pit bulls would keep him from selling his house. At least I assume so. So I hired a private investigator to pose as a buyer. Went over to his house with the real estate agent, and he just searched the house while he was being a proposed buyer and found the de-icer he was using to put in the meatballs. And the police arrested him, pulled him in for interview. They did the photo lineup for me, and I couldn't.
So what was the toxin on that? Was it cyanide? What was it?
In de-icer, which makes it toxic, is high nitrogen levels.
High nitrogen. Okay.
Yeah, so they did the little photo lineup, and I'm looking and like, man, none of them look like my neighbor. That guy kind of looks like my neighbor. And then I realized that motherfucker shaved his goatee. right? He had a big old bushy goatee, and I was like, "That's him." He shaved his goatee, and then of course they arrested him, and then he pled not guilty. And I had more time on the books with that private investigator, so I had him do more digging. Turns out this asshole was getting sued by his ex-wife. He drugged her, raped her, videoed him raping her, and uploaded it to a porn site.
What
Jesus.
the fuck?
Oh yeah, his name's Curtis Allen. You guys can Google him. He used to be a professor at SIU, East Illinois University. So she's suing him for that, and he pled guilty to my charge, and then I filed a civil suit. I don't know how much for suing him for. I'm probably going to collect nothing, but I'll force that old fucker into bankruptcy. He'll die penniless. But so yeah. So in any case, the guy's a real piece of work. Is Curtis Allen Smith as his name. Used to be a professor at Southern Illinois University of Illinois, Edwardsville, and yeah, go ahead and look him up. If you find him, send him a message. Say, hey, I heard about you, you piece of shit.
Some people just deserve to have the shit kicked out of them every time they come out the
Anybody
door.
who hurts an animal, man.
Oh yeah. Well, the other thing too, we had a dog die. We had a dog die of kidney failure. We think he poisoned him too. Before that, we had a rescue boxer mix. And,
well, now many states are adopting harming animals as a felony.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know if Illinois is really fucked up right now.
Well,
so.
Illinois got the well, yeah, that's true, but they've got the Animal Companion Protection Act, so it's a felony for feline, canine, and equine. In fact, if if you hit a cat on the side of the road as a police officer, I have to get the Humane Society's permission to dispatch it.
Fascinating. So what were you going to lead this into? Another story, or you already told it?
It went national news, like national news media. I did a bunch of TV interviews about it, and I made a post on my fan page got my little blue check mark, so people pay attention to it more because I think it means something. But I think I got 30 million impressions off of that post, and that's pretty good because Facebook, I'm on their shadow ban list because Facebook says I'm an extremist.
No.
Yeah, you and me both.
Yeah,
I can't use what do they call that? Where you can sell something, the marketplace. I'm not allowed to use it. I'm like, for what reason? And apparently, I've been shadow banned. I don't know what for. But I'm apparently
the Facebook's credit, they didn't shadow ban me. They flat out told me, "Hey, you're sharing extremist content, and we're reducing your reach. So now I've got 17,000 likes on my page. I make a post, 10 people might see it. And here's the thing: I don't give a shit. Facebook's not a real place. They can do what they want.
It's true. It's true. Don, you got anything you want to talk about here?
Golly, golly. Did you hear that? Golly, I sound like
Golly
Ron
gee.
Howard.
Gosh.
on Mayberry,
Gosh.
Golly. No, nothing is immediately coming to mind. Although when you guys were talking about Shane's zombie books,
you two really need to get to know each other. I'm telling you.
In October of 1968, I was in college, California State Teachers College, which is right below Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, if you can believe that, California, PA. And anyway, it was a little shit one-horse town, with this State Teachers College. Not a lot to do. And I decided to go to the movies. Well, there was a brand new movie that had just appeared, of course, October, Halloween. It was called The Night of the Living Dead. And that was probably, other than, what the hell was that Vincent Price movie?
Last Man on
Earth or whatever. Yeah. It was probably the first zombie movie per se by George Romero. And they had shot that movie right in the area where I was going to school at, in and around Pittsburgh. And boy, I'll tell you what, the first time I ever saw that, and at the time, that was an ass-kicking, violent, gory movie. I had to walk back to my dorm from the movie theater, and I was looking in all the corners and shadows after that. I'm sure you guys saw that movie at some time or another, right?
Yeah, I saw it on TV for the first time. It was on Creature Feature on one Saturday night. And I was thankfully sitting with my dad, so it didn't freak me out too much. But yeah, that what really bugs me with that film is that Romero rewrote history with what inspired that. Because early on they asked if it was subtext for race and racism, and he said no. But then years later he goes, "Oh yeah, I did that on purpose. It was all intent. I wanted to make a film that was talking about race without being about race." It's like, you had your shot, dude. Don't church it up now. Don't church it up now. You had your shot. But it's a great fucking film.
Chili Billy Cardell was in that. And who the hell was Chili Billy Cardell? Well, he was a Channel 4 news guy. Okay. And he was also the wrestling announcer promoter, back in the days of Bruno Sammartino, Cowboy Bill Watts, Jumpin' Johnny DeFazio, Haystacks Calhoun, all those guys. All right. And he did a wrestling show. So to see this guy in this movie led, at least at the time for me, lent an air of realism to it that was just spooky as hell. So, for whatever that's worth.
Shane, any scary movies scare the shit out of you?
Exorcist.
And here's the funny part of that. That movie has never scared me. In fact, it is still actively one of the few films that I can watch again and again and again, and I cry.
The end. I can't ever watch it ever again. It probably fucked me up a little bit more because I watched it at a friend's house who happened to live in a massively large 26 roomed former funeral home turned into a house. But no thanks. Big pass on that one.
I'll tell you one movie that scared me so much by the trailer by itself. I refused to watch the movie It's Alive back in, 74? I think it was 75. I think it was 74. And the trailer freaked me out so much. All my friends were going to go see it at a matinee, and I'm like, no, I don't want to see it. That movie scared the shit out of me just by the trailer.
First time I ever saw the movie Phantasm.
Ooh, yeah. That scared the shit out of me, too. The Sphere.
That was, that and those little dwarf guys running around
they were like horrifying Jawas from Star Wars.
Yeah.
But with It's Alive, what was so cool about that trailer was, here's what they did. It's just a black room with a bassinet in the middle of it with a light shining straight down on it. It's the camera slowly going around the bassinet. And it says, the Davises are having a baby or just had a baby. The problem is, and as it comes around, it says, the Davises baby, it's alive. And then you see these two pig-like claws hanging out of the bassinet, and you hear this sound, ah! And I was like, I don't want any part of this. That fucking freaked me out. That's all it is. No, the hand didn't move. It's just hanging outside the bassinet. And I had nightmares of that thing for the longest time. Yeah. But you were going to say something, Shane?
Oh, I was going to say the film that I thought would be the scariest as an adult that I enjoyed was The Ring. And only because the scariest point of the whole movie occurred during the day. And that was really cool to me.
Oh, when wait a minute.
She comes out of that TV at the very end.
Yeah. At the
and it happens in the daytime. There was no the director tried to make it darker, and no jump scares, no
middle of the fucking day.
Yeah,
that thing starts coming out after him.
Yep,
yeah,
wonderfully done. I'm not a big.
The Japanese version has that same moment in it. And Ringu, And I remember when I saw that was back in 02, I think. 02.
Is that the one
03?
where she goes,
No, that's The Grudge.
I like that one. That was okay.
I told you what Zoe did on that, right?
She put her hair down in front of her face. And did it.
She was too young to be watching this movie. So I was up watching it about 12 midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm watching it in my apartment in Springfield. And all the lights are out and I have surround sound, stereo surround sound. And the end of the movie happens and it's going to black and the credits are about to start. And I hear this sound. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm looking at my speakers, like, is that coming out of my speakers? And then, like, instinct said, look down the hallway. And I turned and looked down the hallway in that black, dark hallway. There's my daughter in her white nightgown and her long black hair. You know my daughter. And I went, oh, sweet Jesus Christ. Are they teaching you CPR yet in school? Oh, my God. What are you doing? And she goes, why did she make that noise? That's my daughter. Why did she make that noise? I said, because he crushed her throat. She goes, oh my God. I said, go to fucking bed. The hell's wrong with you? You're going to kill me. Yeah, that's really nice because Shane's had a relationship with my daughter too for years.
Yeah, old Zoe. She's pretty cool.
Man, he and I plotted at one time trying to get our kids together, Dakota and her.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, could you imagine how beautiful the kids would be?
Can you imagine all the wonderful things we could do as grandparents to make our children's lives hell?
Oh, and we would gang up on them so badly.
Yeah. Victory would be ours.
Yes. But we're winding down now. It's 1:40, hour and 46 into it. We've got about 7 more minutes. I want to try to think of something good to really bring up in here. And let's see. We talked about so much of your stuff. Oh, let's talk about being a recording artist. Yeah.
Well, I am not a recording artist, but I've written for.
You've written for recording artists.
Yep. I've done.
Yeah, because you can't sing a fucking note.
I couldn't carry a tune in a bucket.
Nope.
But I've done some professional work for Sony Wright Records artist Steve Tibbs. I've done work for my most recent project I did was for a small, like super small indie guy and his label in Nova Scotia. And the song's not out yet, so I can't talk about it. The artist name is also Shane Moore. Well, I talk a little bit about it. The artist name is also Shane Moore, which made me like, hey, let's do this. Let's do a project. And the beat that they sent me to write for was, I don't want to sound insulting, but it's a Casio keyboard beat, right?
Really bad. Okay.
But it's overlaid with an amazingly talented harmonica play. And the guy, the artist, does a Billy Joel. He's got a Billy Joel style to him. It's really cool. Yeah, almost like Blind Melon mixed with Billy Joel. It's just really cool style. I really liked his sound. And when you add that harmonica to the beat by itself, I'd just be like, "Oh, what the fuck's going on?" But then you add that harmonica to it, and it strangely, if it works, it's really cool. But what was the most challenging was the beat sounds as if it was intended to be just an instrumental song. And you want to talk about struggling to put lyrics to it. There was no structure. I couldn't do a verse, bridge, hook. It wasn't like that. It was challenging, but man, it was a lot of fun. I wrote a song and I was channeling my inner shantytown, right? So I'm writing for a Nova Scotian artist that has a Nova Scotian sound. Right. So I was just, when I was writing it, I was imagining a guy that lives on a northeastern shanty town. Maybe he's a fisherman and he falls in love with this hot ass redhead that rolls through town.
Right.
And her name is Gwen. And she's a man eater. She don't give two fucks about him. She gets what she wants. She does her own thing. And at the end of the song, he breaks up with her, not because he wants to, but because she's not good for him. He comes to that realization, and it was a really fun song. I hope the label, I mean, my work with it's done, so the label decides what they're going to do with it, or the artist, and I hope they produce it. I think it's going to be a really fun song. My favorite song ever probably is a song I did. There's a top 40 rock band called Shaman's Harvest, and their drummer, who has amazing vocals, in my opinion, better vocals than the lead singer of Shaman's Harvest, and he's a really good singer as it is. He branched off to do his own career, and I did a project with him where I wrote the novel Lucifer, the Untold Story, which is the fall of Lucifer from his grace of God, but it's his point of view. Right. The story's written from his point of view. And I did a single for it called Lord of Light. And it's a really good song, and Jarillo did it acoustic. And man, I get goosebumps every time I hear that song. I really think I wrote it so well.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Steve Tibbs, because he's a mutual friend of ours. And I am proud to have brought another friend of mine out of retirement, not just Don, but
was I retired?
You said you're retired, and I said, "Oh, good, I brought you out of retirement."
What the hell did I do this?
I got you out of mothballs. But Steve Tibbs had retired pretty much from music, and he wants to work with me on an album. And I said, "Fuck yeah, I'd like to do that." And I'm looking forward to getting a keyboard so I can start like laying down some new tracks and shit. But we are now reaching the end of the show. So I want to throw out for every single one of you motherfuckers that did a breach the back door joke. Here you go.
Open your back door, baby. Loosen your hinges, I'll show you my key.
Strong. I'm gonna go check the back door. Back.
Like, wouldn't you know that back door would trigger a trap door? Yeah.
There you go.
Oh my God.
To Monkey Jeebus.
Where do they teach you to talk like this? In some Panama City sailor want a hump bar? Sell crazy someplace else. We're all stocked up here.
Hey, let me jump in real quick before we close. If there's anybody listening that plays DayZ, it's a zombie survival game. I found a server that was based on my books, and I now play on it in secret. It's called The Apocalypse of Enoch. The game is DayZ. It's a ton of fun. You should jump in and play it. If you go to Apocalypse of Enoch Facebook page.
Well, with the money you just made off of something, weren't you going to be setting up a new server or something for that?
Well, what I'd like to do is build an actual AOE game, but I figure I need about 100,000 minimum to get it to the alpha stage to then begin building the finer elements. And I don't have 100 G's, so I've considered a Kickstarter, but
I got to tell you, it's a good thing to do. You should give it a try. But we need to have you back on. I want to have you back on our regular show too. I'd like to have you over on TGIF. You are one of my best friends. Because I tell people, man, Shane Moore, don't you speak ill of him unless I like it. Then I'll laugh at it.
Well, if it's truthful, they can speak ill of me.
Yeah,
I'm not perfect.
Fucking Shane Moore's a dick. It's cool.
A lot of things they don't like of me, I consider my best traits. So it is what it is.
Into that. I want to thank everybody for being here. Shane, thanks for dropping in with Don and me, man. Don, thanks for being
great meeting you, Shane. Really great, man.
Nice meeting you, Don. Nice meeting you, producer Chanel, and did a great
stick
job.
around for after the show, Shane.
All right.
Martin, thank you for being the right side of my brain, and thank you, Chanel, for being an awesome producer, and thank you, Bill Skywatcher, for letting me do this with Don. It's great. Listen to that song. It's fun. That's